Most women spend years asking why he left, why it did not work, why love keeps slipping through their fingers, and they never once stop to ask the question that would actually set them free. What if the answer was never about anyone else? What if everything you kept losing was connected to something you were never willing to look at inside yourself? What if the relationship did not fail because you were not loved enough, but because you had never fully learned how to receive love without destroying it? That is not a comfortable question. That is not the kind of question that gets likes or makes you feel good in the moment. But it is the only question that leads somewhere real. And if you are tired of cycling through the same pain with different faces, if you are tired of waking up and wondering why your love life feels like a loop you cannot escape, then what you are about to hear in this video is going to change the way you see yourself, your patterns, and your relationships forever. Stay with this because this is the conversation most people are too afraid to have, and you being here right now means you are already different from most people. You are ready, and that readiness is where everything begins. There is something deeply painful that happens when a woman looks back on a relationship and realizes she had everything she ever needed right in front of her, yet somehow convinced herself it was not enough. The man who showed up every single day, who never played games, who answered her calls, who remembered the small things, who loved her without conditions, she left him. Not because he was wrong for her, but because his consistency felt too quiet, too predictable, too safe. And in female psychology, safety is sometimes the very thing that triggers restlessness. From a young age, women are fed a narrative that love is supposed to feel like electricity, like uncertainty, like butterflies that never fully settle. So when a man arrives and loves steadily, loves without drama, loves without making her question where she stands, something in her mind begins to misread that peace as a lack of passion. She confuses his emotional maturity for emotional flatness. She confuses his reliability for boredom. She confuses his consistency for weakness. And that is where the loss begins, long before the relationship actually ends. Female psychology is deeply tied to emotion and stimulation. The nervous system, shaped by past experiences and cultural conditioning, often associates anxiety with desire. When a woman has been through relationships where she had to chase, beg, or wonder, her brain begins to wire that uncertainty as the definition of love. So when real love arrives without the chaos, it feels foreign. It feels like something must be wrong. She starts to pull away not because he failed her, but because he never did, and she did not know what to do with that. She may have started seeking excitement elsewhere in her mind, comparing him to men who kept her guessing, telling herself she needed more spark, more tension, more of something she could not even name. What she did not realize in those moments was that she was chasing stimulation while sitting beside devotion. She was looking for fire while holding warmth in her hands. And slowly, without understanding what she was doing, she began to devalue the most valuable thing in her life. The truth about consistency is that it is one of the rarest and most powerful expressions of love a human being can offer. It requires discipline. It requires choosing someone on the days when nothing feels exciting. It requires showing up not because it is easy, but because the commitment is real. That is not weakness. That is the highest form of emotional strength. But when a woman has not done the inner work to understand her own patterns, she will walk away from that strength and call it settling. And then he leaves or she pushes him far enough that the relationship collapses under the weight of her own confusion and something shifts. Time passes. The noise dies down. She encounters men who keep her guessing, and she finally understands the difference. She realizes that the anxiety she once chased was never love at all. It was just familiarity with pain. And the man she called boring, the man she said was too available, the man she felt was too predictable, she begins to see him with completely different eyes. This is one of the most heartbreaking awakenings a woman can experience because it comes after the loss. The clarity arrives when the door is already closed. She understands now that his consistency was not weakness, it was character. It was a man who had decided she was worth being steady for, worth being present for, worth every ordinary Tuesday and every difficult conversation. And she let that go because she had not yet learned to recognize love when it did not come wrapped in uncertainty. The most important journey a woman can take is inward, understanding why she is attracted to chaos, why peace makes her uncomfortable, why she self-sabotages when something good arrives. That is the work that changes everything. Because until a woman heals the part of her that equates pain with passion, she will keep walking away from men who love her right and running toward men who remind her of old wounds. Losing the best thing you had is not the end of the story. It is actually the beginning of the most honest chapter, the one where you stop blaming others and start looking at yourself with courage and compassion. Growth does not feel good in the moment, but it is the only thing that stops the cycle. And the woman who does that work, who faces that truth without flinching, becomes someone who will never again mistake a good man's consistency for anything less than the extraordinary gift that it truly is. There is a strange and painful irony that lives inside the human heart, and for women especially, it shows up most powerfully in the way they love. The very thing they say they want, a love that is stable, consistent, caring, and real, is often the very thing that makes them uncomfortable when it actually arrives. And instead of staying, instead of leaning in, they find themselves pulling away, creating distance, or worse, walking straight towards something that has already proven it will hurt them. This is not weakness, and it is not stupidity. It is psychology. It is pattern. It is the comfort zone trap working exactly as it was designed to work inside a mind that has not yet been set free from its own past. The comfort zone is not always a place of peace. For many women, the comfort zone is actually a place of familiar pain. It is the emotional environment they grew up in, the dynamic they normalized early in life, the feeling they learned to associate with love before they were old enough to know the difference between love and survival. If a girl grows up in an environment where affection was inconsistent, where she had to earn attention, where love felt like something that could be taken away at any moment, her nervous system begins to record that experience as what love is supposed to feel like. And then she carries that recording into every relationship she enters as an adult. So when a love arrives that does not follow that pattern, when someone shows up with stability and warmth and genuine care, her nervous system does not relax into it. Instead, it sends out an alarm. Something feels off. Something feels too easy. Something feels wrong, even when everything is actually right. And because that discomfort feels so real, she listens to it. She trusts the alarm over the evidence. She trusts the feeling of wrongness over the reality of goodness standing right in front of her. This is where women run, not because they are flawed beyond repair, but because they have never been taught to question the alarm. They have never been shown that discomfort in the presence of real love is not a red flag about the other person, but a signal about their own unhealed places. So they chase what feels familiar. They move toward the inconsistency, the hot and cold, the push and pull, the person who makes them feel like they are always on the edge of losing something. And that edge, that anxiety, that constant emotional reaching feels like passion. It feels like being alive. It feels like love because it matches the recording. Female psychology is incredibly sensitive to emotional stimulation and attachment patterns formed in early life. Research and lived experience both confirm that women tend to form deep emotional bonds quickly, and those bonds are heavily influenced by the attachment style they developed in childhood. A woman with an anxious attachment style will often find herself most drawn to situations that mirror the inconsistency she experienced growing up. Not because she wants to suffer, but because the brain is always seeking the familiar, always trying to resolve the unfinished emotional business of the past. The real tragedy is not that she chases what hurts her. The real tragedy is that she often does it while something beautiful is waiting. While a love that could actually hold her is standing nearby, she is emotionally sprinting in the opposite direction towards something that will confirm every fear she has ever had about not being enough. And when that painful relationship ends, as it always does, she is left not only heartbroken but confused, wondering why she keeps ending up in the same place. Breaking out of this trap requires something that feels almost counterintuitive. It requires learning to be uncomfortable with comfort. It requires sitting with the unfamiliar feeling of being loved well and choosing not to run from it. It requires therapy, self-reflection, honest conversations with yourself in the quiet moments, and the willingness to ask why certain things feel magnetic even when they are clearly harmful. It requires a woman to look at her patterns with compassion, but also with courage, and say that this ends with me. The woman who does this work changes everything. She stops the cycle not just for herself, but for the generations that come after her. She learns to recognize real love, not by how much it makes her nervous, but by how much it makes her feel safe, seen, and chosen every single day. If this message reached something deep inside you, if it made you pause and think about your own patterns and your own healing journey, then this channel was made for you. Subscribe right now because every week there is new content designed to help you understand yourself better, love smarter, and build the life and relationships you truly deserve. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a message that could change your life. There is a moment that many women know all too well, a moment that arrives not with noise or drama, but with a quiet and devastating clarity. It is the moment she realizes what she had, not while she had it, not while it was right there offering itself to her every single day, but after. After the distance grew too wide, after the patience finally ran out, after the good heart she never fully appreciated stopped waiting and moved on. And in that moment, everything she dismissed, everything she took for granted, everything she was too distracted or too comfortable or too emotionally unavailable to receive, comes rushing back with a weight that is almost impossible to carry. This is one of the most common and most painful experiences in female psychology, and it does not happen because women are careless or cruel by nature. It happens because of something much deeper and much more human than that. It happens because the mind has a tendency to normalize what is always present. When something good is constant, when care is always available, when love never threatens to disappear, the brain stops registering it as valuable. It becomes background noise, it becomes expected, and what is expected is rarely appreciated until it is gone. In female psychology, this pattern is closely tied to how women process emotional security. When a woman feels emotionally secure in a relationship, when she knows the love is not going anywhere, her attention often shifts outward. She begins to focus on what is missing rather than what is present. She starts to notice the small frustrations, the unmet preferences, the ways the relationship does not look like what she imagined. And slowly, without even realizing it, she begins to emotionally withdraw from something that was actually working, not because it was broken, but because she had stopped seeing it clearly. The good heart in her life kept showing up. It kept trying. It kept loving through the coldness and the distance and the moments where she made it clear without words that she had stopped prioritizing what they had. And because a truly good heart is patient, because it believes in the person it loves, it stayed longer than it should have. It absorbed more than was fair. It gave without receiving, and it did so quietly, because that is what genuine love does. It does not demand recognition. It does not perform for applause. It simply continues, and in its continuity it becomes invisible to the person who needs to see it most. Women who have lived this experience often describe the aftermath as a grief unlike anything else. It is not just the loss of a person. It is the loss of a version of yourself you wish you had been. It is mourning the moments you could have been present for, but were not. It is replaying conversations where you were dismissive, remembering times you made someone who loved you deeply feel like they were not enough, and understanding now with full, painful clarity that they were always more than enough and you were the one who was not ready. That realization is heavy, but it is also one of the most transformative things a woman can move through if she chooses to face it honestly rather than run from it. Because the question that matters is not why did this happen, but what does this reveal about me? And what am I going to do with that truth? Taking a good heart for granted is almost always a reflection of an internal wound, an unhealed place where a woman does not fully believe she deserves steady love, so she unconsciously pushes it away or devalues it before it can leave on its own terms. Healing from this requires radical honesty. It requires sitting with the discomfort of having been the one who caused pain this time. It requires grieving not just the relationship, but the person you were inside of it and committing to becoming someone different going forward. It requires understanding your own emotional unavailability, your own avoidant tendencies, your own habit of looking past what is good while searching for something you cannot even clearly define. The painful truth about waking up too late is that you cannot go back. The clock does not reverse, and the good heart that waited for you has finally learned to protect itself. But what you can do is wake up fully right now, in this moment, and decide that this lesson will not be wasted on you. Decide that the clarity you have now, as painful as it is, becomes the foundation of a deeper and more conscious way of loving going forward. The woman who truly learns from this does not just become a better partner. She becomes a woman who finally understands her own worth, her own patterns, and her own power to choose differently. And that woman never takes a good heart for granted again. There is a version of healing that feels comfortable and familiar to most women, and it looks like this: replaying everything that went wrong and placing the weight of it entirely outside of yourself. Talking to friends about how you were treated, what was said, what was not given, what was taken. Building a narrative where you are fully the one who was wronged and the relationship ended because of everything and everyone except you. That version of healing feels safe because it requires nothing from you. It asks you to be the victim, and victims do not have to change. But that version of healing also never actually heals anything. And deep down, in the quiet moments when the noise stops, most women already know that. Real healing is a different thing entirely. It is not comfortable and it does not feel safe at first. It begins with a single act that takes more courage than most people realize, and that act is honesty. Not the honesty you perform for others, but the honesty you sit with alone, the kind that asks you to look at your own behavior, your own choices, your own patterns, and your own contributions to the outcome of something that mattered to you. That is where true healing lives, and that is also where true growth begins. Female psychology is deeply relational. Women process their emotions and their identity largely through their connections with others, and this is actually a beautiful thing because it means women are naturally wired for empathy, for depth, for emotional intelligence, but that same wiring can become a blind spot when it comes to self-reflection. Because women are so attuned to how others feel and what others do, they sometimes become less practiced at turning that same lens inward and asking, what did I do? What did I avoid? What did I bring into this space that made it harder for love to survive here? Owning your role in your own loss does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It does not mean excusing behavior that was genuinely harmful or pretending that you were the only one who made mistakes. It means being willing to hold your part of the story with the same clarity and accountability that you hold everyone else's part. It means acknowledging the moments you were emotionally unavailable, the times you communicated through silence instead of words, the patterns you repeated even when you could see them clearly, the walls you kept up even when someone was consistently proving they were safe, the love you received but never fully let in because some part of you did not believe you deserved it. That last one is perhaps the most important and the most overlooked piece of the puzzle in female psychology. So many women carry a deep subconscious belief that they are not truly worthy of the love they say they want. And that belief does not announce itself loudly. It does not walk into the room and introduce itself. It works quietly in the background, creating behaviors that push away the very things the heart is reaching for. It shows up as self-sabotage, as picking fights over nothing, as emotional withdrawal at the exact moments when closeness is possible, as choosing unavailable people because available people feel like too much of a risk. Healing starts when a woman is brave enough to look at those behaviors without judgment and ask, where did this come from? When did I first learn that love was unsafe? When did I decide that I was too much or not enough? When did I start protecting myself in ways that ended up costing me the connections I actually wanted? Those questions are not easy to sit with, but they are the questions that unlock everything. The woman who does this work stops being a passenger in her own emotional life and becomes the driver. She stops wondering why the same things keep happening to her and starts understanding the role she plays in the patterns she experiences. She develops a relationship with herself that is grounded in truth rather than comfort. And from that truth, she is able to build something entirely different, a way of loving that is conscious, healed, and genuinely open. This is the most important chapter of any woman's story. Not the falling in love part, not the losing it part, but the part where she sits down with herself in complete honesty and decides that she is worth the work it takes to become whole. That decision changes everything. It changes who she attracts, how she responds, what she tolerates, and what she finally allows herself to receive. Healing is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose every single day, with every honest thought and every courageous look inward. If these words are speaking to something real inside of you, if you are ready to stop repeating old patterns and start understanding yourself at a deeper level, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. Subscribe right now and join a growing community of women who are choosing growth over comfort and truth over denial. Hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and make sure you never miss a video that could be the one that finally shifts everything for you. Your healing journey deserves the right support, and this channel is here to walk that road with you every single step of the way.